Way down south, somebody Mississippi calls my name.
So why did you move back? Isn't LA way more exciting?
Not if your idea of excitement is spending your evenings with your 65-year-old stepfather.
Tupperware goes on top with melt on the bottom.
Why?
Otherwise, they do not receive the proper wash. Remy, I need to go over dishwasher procedure with you.
We heard your radio show.
And we love your soul.
It is possible to pray the gay away.
What if I want to pray the gay to stay?
Well,
Hello. I am a very fun person.
of course you are.
You getting anywhere with straight Kate?
No.
Oh, you just gotta make a move. I mean, that's what I do.
You're missing the part where they end up not liking you because you've prematurely made a move.
That's too much thinking for me.
Let's face it, Mississippi is just not the right demographic for you.
What happened to fearlessness?
It's so cute. Our kids believe in dinosaurs, isn't it?
What do you mean by believe?
You know how they think they're real and everything.
I've seen the documentary called Jurassic Park, and it's kind of hard to argue with that. Good morning, crowd of humans. What do I think? I love family. And by the way, I like it here.
And that's my number, in case you need to discuss anything further. I'm Nikki.
Nikki, stop flirting with me.
Hello, Tig.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank
That's
you.
good to hear. We were all captivated by the trailer for the new season back there, and you got the laugh line at the right exact moment. How?
That's what we were hoping for. Thanks, everyone, for laughing.
So I think, if you know Tig Notaro at this point, you kind of know the story of the evolution. I want to go back even a little farther than that to the first time that you ever brought a character to life on camera. I'm curious kind of how that's treated you over the years. When was the Sarah Silverman program the first time you did a character who wasn't yourself, so to speak?
Well, the very first time I was on TV was Zach Galifianakis had a TV show on Comedy Central called Dog Bites Man. And I had one line, and I walked into the room and delivered my line with my hands out like this and kept them up the entire scene. So that was the first time I brought a character to life.
Were you intentionally doing that? Or it was just an instinct?
Just frozen and didn't know what I was doing. You know, I started as a stand-up, and that's what I identify as. And so I got this opportunity to go on Zach's show, and I just didn't know what I was doing. And I just thought this indicated that I was acting by lifting my hands like that.
And what kind of notes did you receive on that delivery?
Not one.
So
Everybody was just like, perfect.
Your career is born.
Yes.
So did they
Welcome to Hollywood.
keep you in the episode with your
Yeah, I'm
hands
just
turned
standing
out
there going
that?
like this. And then after that, I was on Sarah's show. But I mean, I've done some acting, but it's not something where it's like, oh, I've trained to do this my whole life, and this is my process. And, my process is just learning the lines and, keep breathing.
Well, totally, especially because you started as a music promoter even before you were, or maybe while you were doing trying to make it in stand-up, I assume.
No, they were completely different times.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked in the music business.
So you probably never even had like a remote fantasy of like, I will be an actress, whatever that might mean, I assume.
No. Everybody, when I was doing stand-up, people would say, so what do you want to do ultimately? And I was like, just get better at stand-up. And they were like, but then what? Then what are you going to do? And I was like, I guess get better than that. And they're like, but like, what's your show? And I had watched, sitcoms in my life, but it never caught on to the pattern that stand-ups had their own TV shows. I don't know why. Even though I followed stand-up, I don't know. I just didn't think much about it.
Do you think there's some sort of inevitability that if you make it as a stand-up, whatever that might mean for you or any one individual in the industry and the business, that needs to be parlayed into character work? Because you bring up a good point. It feels like everybody kind of works their way into, whether they mean it or not, some sort of movie career or, kind of, eponymous sitcom type thing. Yeah.
This orange-faced creature. I haven't run into many people in my position. I feel like most people are going for that, and I am now submerged in TV and film, and I can't say submerged like I'm, the big box.
The next
office
Marvel
draw.
superhero.
Yeah. But I mean, I think most people were clapping, just curious who I am as I walked out. But anyway, I think it is. That's what people are going for the most part, and I'm enjoying it. And I've loved doing my best and trying to figure it out. And I prefer to watch myself act over watch myself do stand up because I don't really relate to acting. So I'm always like, oh, that's interesting. Look at me, Whereas stand up, I'm like, oh, I can't watch that.
I think the first time that I saw you on screen was after the 2012 viral cancer bit that really, I guess, kind of launched you to the next tier, if you will, was in in a World, which Lake Bell's movie that I love. Everyone should check it out. I'm curious, in the years since then, Transparent, One Mississippi, all the other things that have come your way, how much more comfortable do you feel doing character work, especially considering you're no longer out, stretching your hands out to the
I
air?
might still be doing this and not even realize it. I think I've noticed a distinct difference when it's my own show. I feel extraordinarily comfortable, and then I thought that I must be over that hurdle and be comfortable now. And then I get brought in to act on something and I'm like, my hands go up again and I'm like, is this it? So I think it's a process, and I'm not sure where I am in the process.
It's interesting the links that have come through in your character work as it relates to your real life. Obviously, One Mississippi, both for you and the other writers on the show, is very autobiographical. Semi-autobiographical.
Very semi.
Okay, very semi.
Yeah, very semi.
So just autobiographical. And it's interesting, when you did your bit on the Sarah Silverman program, Sarah was this straight woman who fell in love with your character. Mm-hmm. And then in real life, that's your and Stephanie's story. Mm-hmm. And now Stephanie is on One Mississippi, and that plot is re-emerging on the show.
Yeah.
Did you have discussions with her about kind of bringing now she's involved in it. It's no longer, Sarah Silverman's undertaking or a stand-up bit. What kind of conversations did you guys have about bringing your story to the screen in that way? And we saw it in your documentary as well, from your Netflix documentary.
Well, it's like any other storyline in the show that we pitched. It was, what are we comfortable with contributing to the show, and what do we think is going to be worthwhile? And then there's 6 writers in the writers' room, and so aside from me bringing my stories and Stephanie bringing hers, there's 4 other people that are contributing. And I think whatever makes the most sense is what we go with. And we've certainly withheld some information and moments in our relationship, but it is fun to recreate some parts of our life and falling in love, and to see it in a different world, it's really funny because it's like, oh yeah, that is a moment recreated, but nothing around it is what was actually happening.
And I assume when it happened on Sarah Silverman all those years back, that was long before it was happening in your own life.
What?
The plot on Sarah Silverman where she falls in love with your character.
Yes. But Sarah didn't really fall in love.
No,
Yeah,
right. The
yeah.
character of
Yes,
Sarah's
yeah,
on
yeah,
the show.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was fiction becoming reality in a way.
With somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Total fiction. Yeah.
Sarah has nothing to do with this.
It's interesting the, of course, resonance that the show takes at this particular moment. I'm from Louisiana, so
where?
Lafayette,
Oh,
about
wow.
2 hours north of New Orleans, for those who aren't familiar.
I'm assuming you're familiar with Delcom.
I'm familiar, and I recognize some of the humor in the show, if you will, and I love, there's a plot, I've seen the first 2 episodes in the new season, and there's a plot about, is it true that in Mississippi, MLK Day has been changed, or some people choose to honor Great American Day? And
Yeah, one of our writers came across that in research, and we were just like, what? This can't be. This cannot be.
which they do because Robert E. Lee's birthday falls right around the same time that.
Yeah, they don't have the
MLK's
same birthday.
No, I Googled it this
yeah,
afternoon
yeah.
and looking, I was like,
Yeah.
because somebody on the show says, oh, they have the same birthday, and they don't even.
Yeah, I think that entire day in the writer's room, our mouths were just agape, and that was the extent of our work for the day. We were just like,
When did
this
you
makes no sense.
When did you write that plot line? When did you guys concoct?
I mean, it had to have been January or February.
January, February.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's a line in it where a woman says, it's nice that they honor both sides, which sounds very
Yeah.
many sides, Trumpian.
Yeah,
And so you are prophetic. You saw this this moment.
Well, the writer's room, yes. It feels like, with everything that's been going on, it feels like we hurried and wrote this second season and shot it in the past 2 weeks and just got it all together because it feels so timely.
Do you feel, as a writer and somebody who is such an observational comedian, both in your stand-up and in your television writing, do you feel compelled to add that timeliness in, or was it just you guys just couldn't? I mean, it's hard to think of anything else right now.
Well, yeah, I think after the election, we all came into the office ready to discuss how we felt and what we were thinking and where we thought everything was going. And so it's not like, with everything I do, I'm like, oh, I have to be timely with my material, and I have to, I feel like it's always whatever feels right, and that felt right for the show in the room, and it happened to just be kind of dead on with what was coming.
In ways that you didn't even maybe recognize at the time. It's grown and manifested over the months since you guys put it together, which is such an interesting phenomenon to think about as a writer.
It's really bizarre. Yeah.
Not a good kind of bizarre,
No,
necessarily.
but people, when they interview me, they're just like, so wait, when was this written and filmed? And I was like
surely you guys went and did like a pickup after Trump said the many sides thing.
No.
I always think about comedians and sort of your writing process, if you will, because I compare it to like a musician, for example, who will have life experiences and then spend a few months writing an album based on those life experiences. They go through a breakup and they pour themselves into an album, a pop album or whatever it
Adele.
Maybe Adele, for example. Yes. And a comedian, so you hear about musicians or screenwriters kind of going through these like bursts of creativity, and comedians, the instinct, I would assume, is so naturally observational. Do you have a writing process, or is your brain always writing based on the minutia of everyday experiences?
I think my brain is more so always editing. I'm always, because I notice when I meet up with people or go out to eat or hang out with somebody's family or people I don't know well, they're always like, oh, you're going to get a kick out of my family, or, oh, you can use this for your material, and no, and they think that you're just constantly looking at everything and everyone, and maybe some comedians do that. I do not, but it's more that I'll be sitting down with people and just having an experience, and I'm just, I have this extra sense where I'm editing out, thinking nothing's sticking out to me, and then there will be something that does pop up, and I'll be like, oh my gosh. And it's actually, I think, never happened when I've gone to eat at people's house, when they're like, oh,
When they build it up.
yeah, they're like, you're gonna get a whole bunch of material here. Never happens that way. And so something will pop up and it'll stick out to me, and I'll just write maybe one word down on a piece of paper or napkin or something, and it'll trigger a memory and how I felt about a topic or something, and I'll go on stage. And I do I wouldn't even say the majority, all of my writing on stage in front of a live audience.
Oh, interesting. So you're never at a notepad or a keyboard
No.
scribbling sentences
No.
that turn into jokes?
No, never.
So if you picked up a napkin that had that one word on it from that one incident, how much of a riff can you bring out of that one word? How many minutes?
Well, I have to see, because I
Sure.
have to, get started on it and see where it goes. And sometimes it'll go nowhere, and then I'll apologize profusely to the people that have paid to see me. And then other times it'll turn into 20 minutes about a pop singer that I continue to run into. So you never know what will happen.
So were you that way before you were getting an HBO special and getting booked on television? Was that always your writing process, so to speak?
I think when I first started, I would sit with a notebook and write things down, and then I just kind of grew out of that, and I just moved to a new house, and I found a bunch of random pieces of paper where I was like, oh my gosh, I never do this anymore. This is all just garbage, and
Do you keep the scraps?
I mean, some people probably think all of my material is garbage, but I found actual garbage.
Put that in a book someday.
Yeah.
It's like, there's like photos on the like spine of the book at like the middle, and be like your old like
Well,
sketchings of comedy material.
maybe I'll get a book deal out of this interview. There will be a bidding war for my trash.
Do you hold on to those scraps, those napkins that you've jotted down
I
words
apparently
on?
did. I mean, that's
Like
the
forever
trash I
and
found.
like you.
Well, no, I consolidate as I go along. I'll move a word over to the running list of words that trigger things, and so sometimes I'll go on tour and I'll forget the list, and I'll have to call my wife and ask her to go into my bedside drawer and take a picture of my list and text it to me, and then I have to start a new list because I'm on the road. But yeah, there's probably like 5 lists that are, one's in my back pocket, one's in my bedside drawer, one's on my phone.
Does it amaze you then, or can you relate to the sort of the different mentality of a comedian? I think like, Joan Rivers has a great documentary that shows her elaborate like card catalog system where she has basically documented, I mean, in her terms, every joke she ever wrote or told, and it's filed by like topic. So you go in and it's like a section for like Melissa Rivers and a section
I
for
think
like
that might be mental illness, though. I can't even imagine. Like, that brings me so much stress. I'm a huge fan of Joan Rivers, but I saw that movie and I was just like, oh my God. I mean, I can't imagine holding on to all of that. I really cannot imagine.
And it's like, it's like typeset. She's like printed it out. It's so elaborate.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, again, mine's just a pile of trash that I run into when I move, and I'm like, oh God, this is terrible material.
So after you've compiled all these piles of of trash. I mean, how do you? Sorry, your words, not mine. Your words.
Yes, go ahead.
How do you determine that you have enough of that trash to build a set, to go on tour? How do you construct it into a 15, 30, 60-minute act?
Well, the audience essentially decides what trash I keep or actually toss out. And I feel like a joke or story you have to tell at least 3 times to get a good idea where it's going, if you need to toss it. And but yeah, it's really just the response from the audience that I go on.
So if you, by the time you're touring, so to speak, I assume you've tested that material out in smaller comedy clubs and,
Yeah, one would hope. But I still go out on the road and work on material, and we'll try things out. A lot of my live show is improvisational, and so I'll have, the list of words that I'm going to go over, but then there's also a chunk of time that I will just allow any story to come to my head and just tell it, or joke or something.
And how often do you do that and walk away and feel like you hit the note that you wanted to hit? I mean, do you have horror stories?
Oh, of course I have horror stories. But even if it doesn't go well, I still will leave a show feeling like it was worth it. Whether it went well or didn't go well, that's part of the excitement, I think, of comedy. You work on certain jokes and stories and bits and whatever, but there's you have to have the excitement of you don't know what's going to happen, and that's what's kind of funny, and that is what's funny, and that's what's scary, and that's what's all of the things that bring the energy to a room. And I think I can distance myself a little in those moments and laugh at myself if the audience isn't amused by what I'm doing, and then I can say, okay, this isn't going well, is it? And they'll be like, not really. And then that's a moment of connection with everyone, and they feel like they're in it with you, and while you're searching for the joke or story to pan out. So, and there are nights that are absolute hell, and I leave just going, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? But the majority of the time, I try to not take it too seriously.
And given that you have a show set in Mississippi and tour nationally.
Internationally.
Internationally.
Yes.
Ooh, moving on up in the world.
For years now.
Oh. She has moved up.
Yeah.
Given the material that you're delving into in this season of One Mississippi and the national temperament and all that sort of stuff, do you find yourself because you exist in such kind of an improvisational headspace, if you will, do you find yourself tempering anything that you would say when you're in a particular region, a particular red state, blue state? Do you care? Do you pay attention?
I
know you're not an especially political comedian per se, but...
I'm not, but I have certain things that can upset or make people uncomfortable until they hear me out. But I don't change things for different shows or regions. I remember when I first started in stand-up, there were comedians that were like, you got to have your audition set. You've got to have your late night set. You've got to have your college show. You've got to have your clean show. You've got to have your... And I was just like, that sounds crazy making, And so I never really did that. And I just have done whatever I was working on at whatever time. And you see it somebody asked me to do benefits in these churches in Southern California, and I was like, I'm do you understand? And they were like, oh yeah, we're familiar. And they didn't edit me at all. And I did my set.
You did your regular
I did
spiel.
whatever.
Yeah.
Talked freely about my life and helped raise money and went home. So, but
then
I
you
wasn't
got to pray
like
the gay away flyer on your way out the door.
exactly. Right. Well, they were flirting with me.
There's that laugh line. All right, we're going to open it up to the audience and see what you guys have for Tig.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I saw the first season. It was great. I can't wait for September 8th to happen. I'm wondering if you're working already on the following season as a storyteller and a comedian.
Well, I mean, I have, my little pieces of trash that I'm taking notes on, but we don't have confirmation from the network that we have a season 3. They have to see how the second season goes and if they still like us. And then if they do, we definitely have some ideas of what we'd like to do, but I can't share them with you. But I'm glad you like the show.
Hi, Tig.
Hi.
Clown Service was an unbelievably amazing short. I was wondering what your inspiration for it was and how you went from the initial spark of the idea to the amazing piece of art it was.
You are very kind, sir. Clown Service is based on true events, as the movie says. I had just fallen in love with my first girlfriend, and this was over 20 years. I wrote the film 20 years ago, and it was, based on after having fallen in love with my first girlfriend, not knowing if we were going to be together or not, and I was so sad, and so I went and crashed on my friend's couch in Dallas while she was going to college, and every morning she'd get up and she'd go to class and walk past me while I was just devastated on the couch, not knowing my future. And then one day she was like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay home from school and hang out with you today. And while we were sitting there, I said, I feel like the only thing in the world that would make me happy is if a clown came over here. And she was like, oh my gosh. She said, if you can get a clown to come over to my apartment, I will pay for it. And so I looked up clown services and I started calling places. And the woman on the phone was mortified because she thought I was going to have the clown come over for a party. And so in the movie, you see actually played by my wife, the clown dispatch saying, is this for a party, a graduation? And I'm like, no, it's just for me. And so they were not willing to send a clown over. So we wrote the movie. My friend Melissa Blake, who was a writer on season 1 of One Mississippi, she and I wrote the movie as though the clown did come over. And but I'm very proud of the movie, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
So I have 2 questions. My first question is, do you improv a lot on the show because you're a comedian? I know you have writing credits for all 12 episodes. And my second question is, do you have like a favorite joke or scene in the second season that you're looking forward to the audience to see?
The series is pretty... it's very scripted. Every now and then we'll add something or improv something. I personally would love to do a little more improving if the show continues. And as far as scenes, there's a scene in the first episode that is a one-shot scene. And so it's a... what is it, like my break from reality moment in the first episode when I go into this fantasy sequence, and there's no editing, and the camera just follows me and Stephanie in this moment, and it's so beautiful, and I'm excited for people to see that, amongst many other scenes and moments.
I can
season
confirm
2.
the scene that you're talking about is really special.
Yeah.
It sort of, it has this like fantastical element to it. It's really neat.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Tig, thank you so much for being here. One Mississippi
Thanks for having
premieres
me.
Friday.